Hi everyone, my name is James Banks from Banks Art. I'm a new artist. I've probably been painting for about a few months, but absolutely loving it. Started off doing sketches, pencil drawings, things like that, and then moved on to pastels. And I love pastels, the colours are amazing. And I started doing some people's pets, their dogs. I did a cat and started earning a few quid out of it. But realised that I absolutely love creating art. Amazing. I never thought I'd do that. I had a different career altogether. So for this past year to 6 months, I've really put my head down and just tried to learn as much as I can, mostly from YouTube. And I thought, I want to do this for a living. I do another job, so I'm part-time, but I've started to dedicate my time and hours to learning and painting and learning all the processes with a really strong vision to become an artist and to sell my work. So I'm 52 now. It's just come at a mad time in my life, but I want to be good at it. I want to be really good at it. So I thought today I'd show me painting a horse. I love painting horses. They're my favourite subject, and I think I'm going to be a horse painter. I love the beautiful creatures, and half the job's done because they're so beautiful that, you know, if you get the light and the style right, then they look great because they look great as animals. But so I thought I'd share this oil painting. So I've really gone for a freestyle. So I'm freehanding the horse. And just a little bit of background, I have been following other YouTubers, and there's some just incredible painters and artists and lessons out there on YouTube. So I've been following them, particularly and Andrew Tischler's Tisch Academy. He's an amazing landscape artist, and I've paid a subscription, and I'm watching, you know, the way he paints things, and he's got some online lessons. He's got some really useful information about oil painting. So I started with, I always forget the word because I'm elderly. I started with pastels and loved them, but then realised oil paintings are probably a way to go. They look amazing, colours are amazing. I was a bit intimidated because they're a bit messy and there's quite a lot of gear you need, and it's quite expensive, but I've put my money into it, and I bought a small easel. I bought some Winsor & Newton paints. These are the ones I've got actually. They are called oil colour. So they're not the student paint, but they're a bit better than student paints. And I've started using them. I've started learning how to mix and blend and things like that, and watching other artists. And then I saw a guy recently, and I can't remember his name, but he painted freestyle really fast, and I love that painterly look. So I thought, right, that's an inspiration. I'm going to find a royalty-free picture of a horse, because you have to be careful, and I'm going to paint that. So this is what this painting's about. And I'm a new painter, so I'm going to make mistakes. But anyway, here we go. Right, so what I'm using here is an MDF board that I've put gesso on, and gesso's like it's like a paint, an acrylic type paint, which gives you your oil painting something to bond to. So you do it. There's other videos that other people do showing you how to prepare an MDF board. I was using canvas, but I had a chat with an uncle of mine who's an artist about canvas, and seen some YouTube videos where people say the cheaper canvases are just not worth painting on. And if you end up doing a really brilliant painting and it's on a really cheap canvas, it can, you know, spoil the painting and just be no good. So I've stopped using, I used to go to cheap stores and get cheap canvases. I've stopped using that. Uncle suggested MDF boards. So you've got to prepare the boards, and it's not too onerous. You have to buy some gesso, and you paint the gesso on, you do a few layers. And then from what I realised, for my last layer of gesso, I just mixed in some burnt umber to that, and it gives you that neutral tone. So it's quite difficult painting on whites because you don't know, it's difficult to judge values. And what I mean by values is how dark something is compared to how light something is. So if you look at the photograph of the horse, you'll see like the straps around his face are fairly dark, his eye is very dark, so that'll be your darkest tone, darkest value. And then the lightest value would be his jaw and some of the muscle around his neck. So that helps. So that sort of neutral tone, that neutral brown, helps with that, finding out what's dark and what's light. So at the moment what I'm doing is I'm putting down some burnt umber to show that value around the horse, the foliage in the background, and it's helping me just to sort of figure out the shape of the horse. So, like I said, I'm free-handing, so I've got no under-sketch. So this was an experiment in freehand painting, really. Just squinting my eyes and just looking at where roughly is the eye, where roughly is the shadow around the nose, and painting like that. Now, the great thing about oil painting is you can just work a painting and keep working it. And so that I wanted sort of more of a free-flowing experience of painting, and I want that to come across. So that's why I'm doing it in this style. And it's a bit of a risk because you could end up with a dog's dinner and it doesn't look like a horse, it looks like a goat, you know. And I have had paintings which don't look like what they're supposed to and they go in the bin. But actually what you find is by doing this, your brain is just figuring out exactly where to place things, exactly where the shadows are. And it's incredible that, you know, the more practice you get, the more actually accurate you get sketching with a paintbrush. A lot of the videos I listen to, Andrew Tischler is brilliant. He said you got to practice sketching. In order to paint, you need to be able to sketch. So I've been doing that, like every night I try and do a sketch. I put something on my TV even, and I just pause it on my TV and I just sketch that thing. And you know, they don't look like, you know, especially people are really hard to paint. You know, portraits are really hard to get exactly right, but it's just practice. You've got to get those hours of practice in and you'll find you get slightly better. I think that's my belief with what I've discovered with my own art is you've got to have a willingness to do it. If you really want to do it, then you'll do it. And then it's just practicing. And if you enjoy the practicing, it's fine. And you just get better. And I've seen in my art, it's just improved so much over even the last 6 months. It's just got better and better. And it's really given me a lot of enthusiasm and belief that, oh, I can do this. If I just get better and better, you know, I can produce stuff that people might want to buy. And there are people buying some of my stuff. I've done some pet portraits and things like that. But here I'm looking for a painterly feel, you know, when I love those paintings when you see, you know, big globs of paint on there and to look up close, it doesn't look at anything. When you pull back, it looks like an actual horse or a building or a person. And you look at the brush strokes and people they've kind of whacked on the paint, but in such a strategic way that it looks like a real thing. And it looks so nice, it looks painterly, it doesn't look like a photograph. I mean, there are artists out there who are brilliant and they're really detailed and you can see individual hairs and things like that. And that's really cool, but that's not what I'm after. I'm after the pinnacle of the painterly look. I think loads of people love the painterly look. So here what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the whites and the colour of the whites. So if you look at the photograph of the horse, you can see it's all different, slightly different whites in there. There's little purplish whites and there's a peachy white in there, and I'm just trying to mix that on my palette and just work and rework. And another thing I'm doing is, you can't see it in the video obviously, but I'm standing back from the painting and I'm going, does it look like a goat or does it look like a horse? And it's, it's looking like a horse. It's pretty much looking like a horse. And that gives you faith to carry on, really. Because you think, oh gosh, it's a mess. There's an internal battle going on as you're painting. You're thinking, this is a mess, this is a disaster, it's going to be terrible. And then you take a step back. I've got a very small room, but I take a step back in the room, just switch my brain off a little bit and look at it and go, yep, that's a horse. It's looking all right. And then you can see where the issues might be. Another thing I do, which really helps, is I just use my mobile phone, take a picture, and I look at the picture on my mobile phone. And you can see like where bits of the body are, not the right proportion. I often find if I'm painting and I'm sat at the easel for a long time, things look right. And then my wife will come in and she always gives me a brutally honest answer. And I go, does that look right? And she says, no, his head's too big, or this bit, And she's right. And when I look at it again, I go, oh yeah. It's like you don't notice because you're just so obsessed and you're sat in front of the easel looking at what you're creating. Somehow your brain tricks you into thinking that something is of the right proportion. So it is really important to just go away and look again afresh, So here what I'm trying to do is, again, the values, looking at the values of the horse in the photograph. How dark are the shadows? How light are the shadows? Squinting my eyes and thinking, is this right? And trying to get the colours right as well. Trying to get those greys right that run down from its eye to its nostril. And then there's a slightly different grey underneath along his neck. And there's a little patch of sort of bluish white which separates the bottom of the mouth from its chest, which I've put a line in there. The problems I had with this horse were the ear. As you look at the painting, the right ear, because it's facing the camera, it's a difficult angle. So that was one of the problems I had. And the second problem I had in particular was the eye. Now, it's important to get the eye right, because I think as humans, we look straight to the eye of the animal or the person, and that's your focal point often. So trying to get the eye right was difficult. There, it's a bit too blue, and in the photograph, it's darker. It's important to paint under the right kind of light. You want daylight to paint under, because when you look like me, I like to paint at night. I've got a light bulb, but it's like a really orangey light bulb in my room. So I bought I bought a ring light. It's amazing. It's got an arm that moves, and I used that ring light to paint with. So what you're seeing now is my camera in the middle of the ring light shining on the painting. So I actually had to lean my head around it to see my painting. But the colour of the light is really important, because if you've got this painting up in someone's house and daylight hits it, you want the colours to be right. And even an iPhone camera, as good as it is, will do things to your painting and picture. It will make it more contrasty. And I've done paintings before, and I've taken a photograph and shared them on Facebook, and they don't quite look like the actual painting. So you'll notice that as you're painting over time, that colours are different depending on where you are. And some artists I've been watching swear by plein air painting, which means painting outside in real life, because the colours you're seeing with your eyes, because your eyes are better than any camera, and the darks and shadows and things look totally different from if you take a photograph, because a camera will compensate and maybe make darks darker and lights lighter. It might change the colours. So if you're painting from a photograph, that's not actually a true colour of the thing you're seeing. But it depends on how fussy you want to be about colour. I mean, for me, as a beginner artist, I just want the horse to look like a horse. So, these things are important, I understand, but at the moment, I just want it to look like a horse and to be able to stand on its own and be put up on a wall somewhere and someone would go, oh, that's a nice painting of a horse. That's where I am at the moment. So that's what I'm kind of concentrating on. As you can see, that right ear still looks like a bit of a flat blob. So I think I go in later and correct that. You can let me know in the comments if my chat over the top is useful or if it's just getting on your nerves. I mean, you could always just switch the sound off. Put some gentle jazz on. Yeah, one thing which is tricky when painting horses is the leather work, because it's a lot of very straight lines and it's quite hard. I don't know if you ever tried this, to just draw a straight line. So what I'm using here is a great little brush. It's called a dagger. And I get my brushes from Rosemary & Co. They're a lovely paintbrush company, and I believe they're British. I'm not sure, they might not be. But I think they're a British company and they make really well-made brushes. And they do hundreds of different brushes, but I bought a set. And one of them is this dagger brush. And I think I did order from Andrew Tischler, who I follow. I'm on his online painting course. It's called a Tisch dagger. And it's really great because it helps you with those straight lines. And I'm using it here to create hair, and it's like dagger shaped, and you can turn it around so you've just got the point, or you can use the flat of the blade of the dagger to draw these straight lines. You still need quite a steady hand. I mean, looking at it now, I still think I need work on values. So my shadows I don't think as dark as they should be. So maybe you need to be a bit braver with my shadow colours and just make them a bit more striking. The last few paintings I did, I realised, because I like to paint in one session, and I realised actually, if I want to make this presentable and sellable, there's probably some errors still that I need to tidy up. So I did it on subsequent days, just go in and sharpen up some of the lines and some of the colours. But again, this is an experiment in sort of freestyling a painting without trying to get into too much detail to give it a painterly look. And I think it's quite an art form to make sure that you're putting down these strategic marks and strategic blobs of paint to make it pop, you know. So I'm still learning this, but at this point, I mean, I'm pretty happy with where the horse is. The background I will fix, because at the moment those yellows and whites are kind of drawing the eye away a little bit from the horse, and I want, if you look at the photograph, there's nice blurring in the background, so I'm gonna blur that out in a little bit. Here I'm using another paintbrush just to rest my hand on, because all this paint's wet, don't forget. So there is a special tool, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but it's basically a stick with a bit of leather or material tied to the end, and you see all the artists of old using them. But what it does is you can put it on the painting and rest your painting hand on it, and it just gives you that steady platform to be able to do those little tiny details. As you can see, I'm all over the place, so you know, I don't start at the top and paint and work my way down. I do that with pastels though. If I'm doing a pet portrait, I will start on the eyes and just get the eyes looking really bang on, and once you do that, I spread out from the eyes and work my way out of that painting. But with oil painting, I'm just all over the place. I'm making, you know, I'm doing adjustments as I see them, you know, and I enjoy that. It's really nice. It's really nice to do that, and then step back and look at the painting and go, right, I probably need to do some work on the shoulder. So I'll go back in and do some work on the shoulder, and then step back and then notice another mistake. So I'm just sort of firefighting at this point, just looking at my source material, looking at my painting and thinking, what do I need to work on? Another point is when you get to highlights, that's a really satisfying experience. If you can, your highlights are obviously your lightest lights, and when you start putting highlights into a painting, it really does bring the painting out, and you start getting that sort of satisfaction, like, oh, okay, it's starting to look good now. So here I noticed that the white of the cheekbone isn't as light as it should be. So, and the shadow wasn't as cut. So I've gone back in and added that. And I'm just looking for problems as I'm painting and trying to fix them. Again, I'm using the Tish dagger there to make that. I'm using quite thick paint at this point. So when you're oil painting, you kind of work from a thinner paint. So you mix it with a medium. It's called a medium. I use what's called Liquin Original. So what I do is when I'm selecting a colour, I dip my paintbrush. It's quite a blobby sort of mixture, so you can just put it on your palette. I dip my paintbrush into Liquin Original before dipping it into the colour. And Liquin Original actually helps to dry your painting a bit faster. And what it does, because when I did my first oil painting ever, I just used colour. I just used the paint straight from the tube, and it was so thick and hard to work with. And then I realised you've got to use a medium. And Liquid Original is a nice medium. And you just use, I think Andrew Tischler says, used 3 parts paint to 1 part medium. But what it means is basically you just dip your paintbrush into the liquid and then mix it in with your paint. And it makes it a little thinner and easier to work with. So that's what I'm using. Here, you notice I'm working on that ear, and it's still, for me, it needs to look like an ear and not like a strange shape. Now I've left the horse for a while. I'm going back to the background, and I want to make the background look good. And I just want to move where I want to move. So here I'm using a really light, fluffy brush, and I've just worked out that this really works well for blending. And you just really lightly move the brush over the surface of the oils, and it blends all of those colours together, and hopefully gives it that kind of blurred look, as you can see. So then it means that your focus is more on the horse. So there I am at the end of that. I don't know what you think. This is a finished product in daylight. I think I'm going to leave it there for the moment. I might go back and touch up some areas. Like, I think there's a bit of there's too much separation between that. There's a light blue under the mouth, which just looks like a line at the moment. I'm not sure about that. The main neck of the horse looks a little bit, I probably want to bring out that muscle that's above, which below the mane. I might want to just highlight that a little bit more and make that neck look a bit more realistic. It's kind of a little bit of a mess at the moment. But I think generally, all in all, it looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with the eye and the nose and the mouth. I like the background. The left ear, as we look at it, looks good. The mane's okay. And I probably will come back in and just do some more line work on the headgear, on the leather work. But generally, you know, quite happy with that. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this video is just too rambly, or, you know, if it's useful, or, you know, tell me, shut up, James. Just want to see the painting. And thanks for watching. Cheers, guys.